But last night, Microsoft founder Bill Gates and Melinda, his wife of 27 years, announced their divorce, saying, after a great deal of thought and a lot of work, we have made the decision to end our marriage. We no longer believe we can grow together as a couple in this next phase of our lives. And Penny, it's interesting they sort of talked about the fact that they felt they couldn't grow together. Do you think that's quite an important thing to do when you're in a long-term marriage?
The way I see it, I mean, obviously not knowing them personally, but, you know, we've all gone through this lockdown together, no matter what position you are in life. And maybe they've just kind of come to realise that they don't have so much in common and, you know, their time is up, sort of thing. You know, I think that with the lockdown, it's either make or break with a lot of relationships, and you've really got to know a lot more truths about someone. Maybe they always spent so much time travelling, working, and then they've been in each other's pockets. Rod and I, you know, are lucky that there's no real secret, is there, about marriages and keeping together, other than I think it's communication and really making space for one another to grow, encouraging one another. I mean, Rod's still the rock star I met. He hasn't really done much changing, but he's seen a lot of change in myself, from, you know, turning into a mother of 2 and then, you know, changing my career on to being a police officer. I mean, I wouldn't have gone ahead with that if I didn't have his support. Same with my children. I think it's a case of, it is growing together and then allowing each other that space. And yeah.
Do you think you and Gary have grown together after all these years?
Who knows? Well, we married quite late, I guess, so I think we'd done a lot of our kind of growing before that point. But, I mean, you look at... we don't know the ins and outs of the Gates, obviously, as you said, but looking at it, I'm thinking their youngest is 18. So I'm thinking that maybe they've been obviously going through this for a while and they just waited until the 18-year-old had kind of left the sort of exam phase of school, maybe, and had become a bit more adult. You know, and they're 2 intelligent, rational people, and probably they can still get on. They're obviously not at each other's throats. So if you can do that and sustain, I guess, for a while, just to get your kids on the other side of school and then do it, then that's probably a good thing.
When it comes to talking about kids, Brenda, were they your main concern when you decided to parent solo?
Well, I mean, I agree with what Jane's saying. There is some stability that's needed, but I don't see anything wrong with co-parenting. I think, you know, for children especially, they can pick up so much in the home that you don't think. You think that you might have a slight argument and the kids aren't hearing, but they hear. And so I'm kind of wondering sometimes if it's better to, you know, rather than just staying together for the children because the children need that stability, is showing your children the reality of life and not trying to cover everything over and saying, OK, we might have grown apart, but we still kind of care about you, we still love you, and, you know, do what's best for yourself to continue your own personal happiness. Because after a while, the children grow up and they leave and they've gone from the nest, and then what? You're left with that man or that woman that's just, you know, you wish you'd have just parked them probably 10, 15 years ago. Just, you know, I think if you have that communication and you see that you're not agreeing and you're not on the same page, then maybe have an adult conversation and say, well, is it time for us to maybe go our separate ways and still be there for the children?
I just don't know how they're going to cope financially.
It's going to be such a struggle. Barely have anything, you know? Barely 2 pennies to rub together. It's interesting because when I sort of think about my friends and their parents who split up after they reached a very similar age, 18, they always say, but we knew our parents didn't get along. We knew that they were really unhappy and we never could understand why they didn't just finish. And I think perhaps talking to the kids a bit more about what they perhaps want could end up paying dividends all round for everyone, I think. So I think, well, as you say, what we think kids aren't affected by usually isn't the case.
It can be quite a shock. I know when me and my ex-husband, when we split and we spoke to the kids, they were like, well, we knew. You just never spoke to us about it because we didn't want to, you know, put any extra pressure on them. We should have just had that conversation.
Yeah.